If I asked you to tell me what you know about medical ethics, I imagine the phrase, first do no harm, would be somewhere at the top of your list, and for good reason. A physician's duty to avoid causing physical or moral harm to patients is embodied in the Hippocratic Oath, which society has depended on doctors to live by for over 2,500 years. That oath also includes the following commitment: I will not give a lethal drug to anyone if I am asked, nor will I advise such a plan. Yet, unfortunately, a new law in California would force doctors to break that vow. The law, SB 380, forces physicians to participate in the process of assisted suicide even when the doctor has conscientious objections. My name is Dr. Leslie Cochran. I'm a full-time hospice physician in California where I treat terminally ill patients on a daily basis. Every day I talk with patients and families about their diagnosis, prognosis, and treatment options. Those options never include any form of physician-assisted suicide because it is never medically necessary to kill a patient in order to manage their pain and symptoms. My commitment is first and foremost to heal whenever possible. When a cure isn't possible, my goal becomes one of providing comfort, which is life with dignity until natural death occurs. That's what my medical training taught me, and it's also fully in line with my Christian beliefs about the precious value of every human life. My colleagues and I serve all patients who seek hospice care, including those who have already decided or may later decide to pursue physician-assisted suicide with another provider. But we should not be coerced or forced into violating our oath or our conscience by participating in physician-assisted suicide in any way. As you can see from this age-old prohibition against giving lethal drugs to patients, assisted suicide has never been a legitimate substitute for good medical care. Today, we have even less of an excuse to resort to this so-called solution than ever before. In the past 30 to 40 years, hospice and palliative care organizations have developed advanced techniques to control the physical, psychological, social, and spiritual distress that so often affect those approaching end of life. It is a myth that people need physician-assisted suicide to control their pain. Most of the people who seek physician-assisted suicide do so because of a fear of a loss of independence, not because of inadequate pain control. Yet, California's law fails to take these factors into account. It fails to provide any funding to improve access to hospice and palliative care. It also fails to respect the deeply held convictions of many in the medical field. Instead, it forces every doctor in the state to participate in death dealing through a series of subtle yet significant provisions in the law. I can think of several times when patients were so physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually exhausted that they could easily have been manipulated into killing themselves, even against their own wishes and beliefs. But I can also think of many times when the outlook suddenly changed once we were able to deliver effective pain and symptom relief. To make matters worse, the new bill reduces the waiting period before a patient can receive a prescription to end their life from what was a 14-day waiting period under the previous law all the way down to 2 days. Terminally ill patients often go through temporary pain or distress that lasts 2 or more days before subsiding, forcing physicians to participate in killing these patients before there is the opportunity to provide pain and symptom relief doesn't solve any problems, and it tramples the consciences of duty-bound physicians in the process. It also directly contradicts the American Medical Association, which warns that physician-assisted suicide is fundamentally incompatible with the physician's role as healer. These are difficult, draining situations where patients and their families often find themselves beyond their ability to make clear-minded decisions. Yet, the end of life can also be a very meaningful time for healing and reconciliation between patients and their families. It is essential to provide families with excellent end-of-life care so that families can have those extra minutes, hours, and days to spend with their loved ones at the end of life. These patients and families depend upon the steady hand of a physician who understands and sympathizes with them, But if California has its way, doctors who uphold those medical ethics will be forced to either leave the state or stop practicing medicine altogether. The Christian Medical and Dental Associations, which I belong to, has found that over 90% of its 16,000 members would rather stop practicing medicine than participate in assisted suicide. But we're not about to pick up and leave our patients without first facing the situation head on. With the help of Alliance Defending Freedom, we filed a lawsuit against the state of California, calling on the courts to protect the freedom of every medical professional to serve patients without being forced to violate the Hippocratic Oath or their conscience. Doctors are healers. The government has no business forcing us to participate in the death of a patient we've sworn to protect. That's not just common sense. It's basic medical ethics and a foundational principle of American freedom. Find out more about our case at adflegal.org. You can watch more videos like this one at adflegal.org/freedom matters. Also, subscribe to this channel on YouTube and click the notification bell to make sure you never miss an episode.